White supremacy is global. It operates out of the exact same playbook, not just in the United States, but around the world. But keeping it to the U.S. for the sake of this evening's Sunday address, understand what's happening with this whole college admissions scandal, which is not really much of a scandal at all. It's just a revealing of what white people have been doing all along, from legacy admissions to paying their way in to putting up some $1 million building so you can guarantee your kids get in. This is what's been going on, and now it's just a matter of it spilled out. You had this hedge fund manager, this financial whatever advisor out in California. He was trying to get his own neck out of the noose for his own trouble. He said, hey, if you let me off the hook for this, I'll tell you about all these other folk over here who have been ripping off the system in other ways. But now that we have a headline-grabbing scandal that has exploded into the public consciousness, just so big that even the feds looked and said, hey, this could be a career-making case. At the very least, we can get some headlines and get our names out there. This is the kind of thing that makes it where people in the higher-ups of the Department of Justice will remember the name of this or that lowly U.S. attorney, especially when it comes time for promotion, especially if it comes time to run for public office. So the white media has made much ado about the fact that Felicity Huffman and Lori Loughlin's arrests have been made. Yeah, apparently they had to get Lori Loughlin all the way in Canada. But do you notice that there's been no mugshots released, and there's not going to be any? Because you see, the Detroit Free Press back in 1996 had to sue the Department of Justice because the U.S. Marshals Service didn't want to release the mugshots of 8 individuals who had been arrested and under indictment. Well, the Marshal Service decided that that was going to violate the criminals' privacy. Never mind the fact that their names were out there. It's a matter of, well, why not put their pictures out there as well? The Detroit Free Press won that lawsuit. And then they had to go back a couple of other times in other instances because the U.S. Marshal Service decided that they were going to, quote unquote, bifurcate their release of mugshots. Anything that took place within the 6th federal judicial district, they would release, but not without you having to pry it out of their hands. But everything outside of the 6th Circuit, they would not release. And the federal government let them get away with this for a long time. Well, that all came to an end, though, about 3 or so years ago, because this time when the Detroit Free Press went to court because the U.S. Marshal Service didn't want to release any mugshots, well, this time the result was very different. You had the 6th Judicial Circuit Court, the same court that ruled that the U.S. Marshal Service had to release mugshots. Now, all of a sudden, they decided, you know what? We changed our minds. And that's practically what they said. Quote, 20 years and 2 contrary circuit-level decisions later, we find Free Press 1 untenable. We therefore overrule Free Press 1. When you read the judicial opinion, and opinion it is because they cite almost no case law, it's a smorgasbord of here's our opinion on this, our opinion on that, but nothing that actually says this is why it's illegal. Instead, they talk about embarrassment and what about people's job prospects. And what about the humiliation? Why people used to have to, when the first Detroit Free Press ruling was handed down in 96, people had to go to the library and find mugshots on microfiche. Well, the problem is that they still do today. And the internet was around back then. Hell, even high-speed internet. You already had a burgeoning industry dealing in online mugshots even back then. So nothing had changed. What changed? Well, what's changed is white supremacy, and I know this is sort of an aside, but this is something that needs to be mentioned. White supremacy is trying to figure out how to implement secret prisons in the United States. Now, a lot of you might say, well, if I got arrested on a federal charge, last thing I want is my mugshot out there. Yeah, but what about if they decide we're not going to release your mugshot or even your name? The feds come and arrest you, and they're not releasing any information on you. Folks, that's what happens to detainees at Guantanamo Bay. Secret prisons, secret trials, secret arrests. You've been snatched up and nobody even knows where. And you go to the feds and they tell you, we can't release any information on anyone who's been arrested. So does that mean you arrested such and such? Well, we can't give you any information on anything. Sorry. That's pretty much what's being set up here, so please don't think that this is going to benefit black folks. None of this stuff is done to benefit black folks. All of it's done to benefit white power. But the point that I'm trying to make is this is the reason why you're not seeing the mugshots of these good white folks. It's done to make sure that all these white people's privacy and their dignity, to the extent that they have it, is maintained. Sure, you'll know that Felicity Huffman was arrested, but at least her mugshot will never be emblazoned in the public mind forever. You know, not like Bill Cosby or R. Kelly or Michael Jackson or O.J. Simpson or Tiger Woods or Chris Brown. Well, you get the idea. You get the idea, don't you? So you understand exactly what this is about. And it ain't about justice. It's about white power trying to get its way. And by the way, before you get ready to say, well, I wonder if the Detroit Free Press will take this to the Supreme Court. They tried. The Supreme Court declined to hear it. As far as they're concerned, that's right. Total privacy to make sure that white people's dignity, that they are spared the slightest embarrassment, that's going to be the law of the land. Didn't you know? But that's just the beginning of the white cover-up. You see, whenever there's some awful scandal that comes to public light and it's time to talk about the wrong that white folks do, the white media can always be counted on to lead the charge to try to find a way to make black people, specifically black men, into the face of it. Oh, you thought this was about white people? Nope, it's about black men. And we know it's going to be about black men because we're going to make it about black men. That brings us to Lynn Swann. Because part of where Felicity Huffman and Lori Loughlin wanted their irresponsible little party animal daughters to go to was USC. And who happens to be the athletics director at USC? Well, none less than Lynn Swann. Now, I posted this on my Twitter page, and I guess we had a couple of denizens of the short bus who showed up, and they started whining that, well, Lynn Swann, he a conservative, man, and he a conservative, so I don't care. And it's like, wow, really? Some of our people are really stuck on stupid, and I say that not to be insulting, but as a fact. Every time I talk about Bill Cosby, you think it's because I think highly of Bill Cosby? I don't. I mention R. Kelly. You think it's because I think highly of R. Kelly? I don't. How many times do I have to say it for the new people or for the slow people? This ain't about Bill Cosby. This is not about R. Kelly. This is not about Lynn Swann. These guys are being used as proxies for the black community. They're being used as political footballs in white supremacy's game of power politics. Anytime the white people are being dragged in the media, the white media immediately goes and tries to find a way. How can we turn a black person into the face of this? If we can't find a black person who's directly connected to it, well, we need to bring up some other example, no matter how far removed, no matter how ludicrously, no matter how tenuous the connection may be. We got to find a way to make a black person into the face of it. Jeff Epstein has been proven to have raped and molested dozens of children. Well, we're not worried about him. R. Kelly, that's who it is. R. Kelly is who it's about. That's what it. Well, Michael Jackson's dead. Not to mention, he has been proven innocent time and time and time again. His detractors and his accusers have been proven liars time and time and time again. Well, we have some new accusations. Do you have any proof? Well, no proof, but we got accusations. Yeah, that's what the white media does. This is to let you know that this is a concerted effort. This is not some accident. This is white supremacy stacking the deck. This is a program at work here. All of this is planned out. Anytime that the white guys are getting too much bad press, okay, let's drag out our convenient Negro to act as our deflection. So now they're starting to ask Lynn Swann, and you got Stormfront East, otherwise known as Yahoo, predictably leading the charge on this one, saying that Lynn Swann, should he keep his job? You know, Lynn Swann says that he was blindsided, but shouldn't he shoulder some of the blame? Now, this guy has shown and proven that he didn't know anything about it. He didn't know what was going on with this garbage. Yeah, he was the athletics director, but he wasn't the one who actually made the decision when it came to people who were going to be admitted to USC under some sort of athletic recruiting scholarship or some sort of consideration for athletics. The person who was most responsible for that was a woman, a white woman, Donna Heinel. But you know, when you look at the Yahoo smear piece against Lynn Swann, which was actually a smear piece against black folks, they only mention this Heinel woman about 2, maybe 3 times. And they make sure that once they mention her, that they don't go back to her again. They make sure, okay, we mentioned her once. Now nobody can say that we didn't bring her up. After this, it's going to be Swann, 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 Lynn Swann, 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 Swann. They want to make sure of that. Now, the white media hasn't been saying much about Donna Heinel. In fact, they haven't been showing her face much at all. This is what she looks like. One has to wonder why. Why would the white media be so conveniently and suspiciously disinterested in the woman who was the one orchestrating that entire scam at USC? The woman who got over $1 million in bribes, and they're just not very interested in her. One has to wonder why. Oh, and what's this? It turns out that Donna Heinel also happens to be a lesbian. Why is that important? Well, she's not just a lesbian, she's also a LGBT activist. And for some strange reason, the person who actually took the money, she's not very interesting to the white media. They've decided that this, quote, prominent member of the LGBTQ collegiate athletics community just isn't very interesting in a scandal that she was one of the main people orchestrating. Lynn Swann wasn't orchestrating it. You had this openly lesbian athletics coach who was doing it instead. And the white media's totally overlooked her. I don't know if there's a connection, but the problem happens to be that you got a black man who didn't do anything, and you have a woman who happens to be a lesbian, who did commit crimes, allegedly, to the tune of over $1 million, and the white media is not interested in her at all. They're interested in the black man who has been shown not to have done anything. But hey, I'm sure that that's all just some sort of coincidence. I'm sure the fact that the white media has decided that there's going to be a virtual media blackout on Donna Heinel, I'm sure that no mention of basically her sexual orientation, even though we want to make sure that everybody gets pictures of Lynn Swann plastered everywhere. We want everyone to know that he's black, but we don't want anyone to know that she's LGBTQ, you know, whatever identity politics, corner of the identity politics sphere she settles into. We don't want anyone to know anything about that. Well, I'm sure that that's all just one gigantic happy coincidence. Well, happy for Donna Heinel. Oh, and just in case that didn't get across to you, at the bottom of their little hit piece, they put, "Not the only USC scandal Lynn Swann has faced." To understand how turbulent Swann's 3-year tenure as USC athletic director has been, consider this column from Yahoo Sports' Pete Thamel, arguing that Swann deserves to be fired. Now, that hit piece came out just in November, just about 4 months ago. And what they were complaining about then was that apparently USC's football team ain't doing good enough, so Lynn Swann should be fired. So this is a matter of, apparently Yahoo in general has it in for black folks. Anytime they feel that they can claim a black trophy head on their wall and say, yeah, we got that nigger fired, we got that nigger put in prison, as far as they're concerned, Yahoo, good day. You know, it's bingo night in the trailer park for Yahoo and the rest of the mayonnaise monkeys in the white media. That's what these guys are all about. The rest of the meth heads and the trailer park trash. This is what you get from the white media. Lynn Swann had nothing to do with this admissions scandal. No matter what some of you slow coasts out there may think of his politics, this ain't about Lynn Swann. The question is, why the hell are they even looking at Lynn Swann to begin with? He wasn't the one responsible for seeing any of this. He didn't see any of those academic applications for athletics. He didn't see any of them. Donna Heinel did. She was the one responsible for that. So why in the world was it that she's not the one getting dragged? Why is it that the white media decided that he's the one who they're going to be coming after? Because this Heinel woman, she was the one taking the bribes. She and 3 other coaches, not Lynn Swann. She was the one getting caked off. So why is it that this white woman is getting over $1 million in bribes and the white media is not obsessing over that? But meanwhile, Lynn Swann, who the worst you can say about him is he sticks by coaches longer than he should. You know, apparently he has a soft spot in his heart for the current coach at USC, a football coach at USC. Apparently that's the worst you can say about him. And that's the worst that Yahoo clans, the Klansmen that they are, can say about him. But that doesn't result in, we need to go after this Heinel woman. We need to find out who the world else. Let's make these people front page news. No, they're going after Lynn Swann because he's a blackface. They don't care about his politics. He's black. That's what's important here. So even in a moment like this, I knew it was predictable, and you had some white folks who were already intimating, well, if there's going to be a look at people who are getting into these schools because of bribery and such, people whose grades don't really merit them getting in, what about all these black athletes? That was the original line that was being used. What about all these black athletes? Well, the black athletes didn't bribe their way in. They got in honestly. They didn't have somebody pay their way in or use all sorts of fraudulent tax schemes, all sorts of tax fraud in order to cover up the bribes meant to get them into schools. White folks are doing that. Everybody knows how the black kids got into these schools. Nobody knows how the white ones got in. Though the white ones, they'll tell you if you ask, or even if you don't ask. Oh, my mom knows the dean. My sister-in-law is related to some of the people on the admissions board. My dad helped to build one of the annex buildings over on the east side of the campus. That's what they do. They'll tell you all about their connections. They'll go all into that for you. Because this is how they get by in the world. Not through merit, but because of who they know. Clearly not what they know. And the white media is making it clear that, hey, you can go ahead and drag white folks, but you better believe on cue, the white media will come out and, okay, now here's the black person who we're going to turn into the face of all this. And for black folks, we better understand something, especially black men in particular. It is not a victimless crime when you don't have power. It is not a victimless crime when you have a 24/7 anti-black racism engine that is running against you, and you are not putting your resources into backing those voices who are going to fight back on your behalf. It is not a victimless crime when we do not have media apparatuses of our own that we are supplying, that we are supporting, and that we are promoting in order to make sure that we got a voice to fight back against this crap. We should have the ability to do what the white media refuses to do. Make sure that nobody forgets. These are white folks who did this. This is a white scandal. And no, you're not going to take some black man, no matter how deluded and incompetent and arrogant he may be, no matter how silly Lynn Swann's personal political leanings may be, you're not going to use him as a proxy for black folks. You're not going to do the old white media two-step where, oh, we were going toward these white folks and talking about the dirt they do. Oh, but we're going to take about 3 steps back now toward these black folks. Okay, yeah, they had nothing to do with it. Lynn Swann isn't guilty of anything. He got no bribes. He did not look at anyone's application and say, yeah, that's what's her name from Full House. Let her little brats in. He had nothing to do with it. Yeah, but he should shoulder the blame. Yeah, they want to make sure that that's a front page article for them. But meanwhile, when you look to see if the good folks over at Yahoo are going to say anything about Donna Heinel, if they're going to have any front page pieces or any sort of reporting about her at all, what you find is nothing. They are not at all interested in her. Yes, she got fired, but that was pretty much the only thing the white media wanted to say. And by the way, something else that needs to be mentioned, Yahoo's sports or Stormfront East Little attack piece on Lynn Swann, that was published on the 16th. But I think it's important to note that no less than the Los Angeles Times had published a similar piece on the 14th. Now, it didn't mention Lynn Swann, but it did everything short of that. Headline, sadly, it's no surprise that USC was at the center of the college admissions scandal. Now, the article started off responsibly enough. They pointed out that USC had had a number of scandals in recent years. A medical school dean who partied with criminals and did illegal drugs. A campus gynecologist who was accused by students of decades of improprieties. A former basketball coach who pleaded guilty to accepting bribes from a sports management firm. And then they got to how this Donna Heinel woman, she allegedly accepted $1.3 million in bribes in order to get all these white folks' kids in. She's been doing this for God knows how many years, and nobody asking how long has she been getting away with this. White media's not asking about the dirt under her fingernails. No all-in laws here. No asking who the world else does she know, what does she know, and when does she know it. They're not. You don't see the Associated Press filing any lawsuits asking, well, can we find out her criminal history? Does Donna Heinel have any other crimes that she's committed? Nobody's given her the full anal exam. They're not interested. Nobody's asking, hey, we're having an open call by the feds, an open call by state and local prosecutors. We want to know, does anybody else have any other accusations against Donna Heinel that they'd like to make? See, they're not giving her the black treatment. They're not treating her like a black person. far as they're concerned, well, she's been fired. What about the 1.3 million? Well, you know, she needs a nest egg, especially under the current circumstances. Yeah, her privacy being violated and all that. But she wasn't the only one. USC's water polo coach, Jovan Vasvich, he also got bribes. But although USC tries to say that it was only a few individuals who were involved and no one who was a senior administrator, well, the white media's sounded all skeptical about that. As the Los Angeles Times put it, sure, it may prove to be true that no other USC administrators knew that coaches were selling admission to parents wealthy and shameless enough to pass their mediocre progeny off as as star athletes. But USC cannot be called blameless. Now, that was on March 14th. And it was only 2 days later that Yahoo puts out their little hit piece. You go to my Twitter feed, you'll see what the original subheading for their hit piece said. Lynn Swann has seen scandal his several programs during his time at USC. Should he shoulder some of the blame? Yeah, sounding just like the Los Angeles Times. That's what you got there, using the same words. They're not even being subtle about this. And even though there's no evidence that Lynn Swann knew anything, you got Yahoo sitting here saying, as a college admissions scandal rocks the University of Southern California, athletic director Lynn Swann wants everyone to know he had no idea what was going on. Now, that's of course supposed to be dripping with sarcasm. That's supposed to be dripping with incredulity. Well, yeah, he expects us to believe he didn't know anything. Well, he's the only one who wasn't getting paid. Do you have any evidence that he was getting paid? The feds have not even said a word about Lynn Swann. They haven't said one single solitary syllable about Lynn Swann. In fact, they've said the opposite, saying, well, it seems that none of these administrators and such actually knew what their underlings were doing, which is exactly what Lynn Swann says. So you have no money, which is what this whole thing was about. It was about getting paid to let all these mediocre and subpar white kids into these schools. Lynn Swann didn't get paid. He didn't know any of these people, at least didn't know them very well. And the man's saying, I had nothing to do with it. He's denying all of this, and the feds are denying it. But the good folks over at Yahoo, Stormfront East, they're not denying it. They're saying, well, far as we're concerned, he should get fired anyway. You know, why should he stay around? He should shoulder the blame, because Yahoo's been trying to get his head on the trophy wall because he's black. If he was white, they would be instead saying that he's struggling through a turbulent period in the school's history. They would be holding him up and trying to make sure that he keeps his job, because the last thing they will want is a slot that opens up and having black folks saying, hey, there's an open coach's slot at USC. Surely there's some black NFL coordinators who could have that job. They don't want to do that. The same way that the NFL has been purging themselves of black coaches, well, Stormfront East wants to make sure that the college system has the exact same ethnic cleansing going on. Time to get rid of all these nigger coaches and all of these athletic programs. Oh, he's over here at an Ivy League school? This is the athletic director for USC? He's got to go. So that's what the white media is about. These guys have gotten themselves on code, their information, just to help cover up white criminality. And this is white criminality. These ain't black folks who've been paying millions of dollars to get their kids into schools that they don't deserve to go to. The black folks, at the very least, the worst you can say is they earned their athletic scholarships. The worst you can say is they earned their athletic admission. Because when they get into these schools, they produce. These black kids get in there and they're expected to help produce billions for these college systems. These black kids get in there and they basically carry the schools on their backs and do so for free, because you ain't allowed to get paid when you're in these college athletic programs. So they're out here making billions of dollars for these white universities and doing it all for free. Yeah, see, that's the problem that these good white folks happen to be in the white media are stuck, the horns of the dilemma that they're stuck on. Oh, they would love to go ahead and say, look at all these black kids, these guys, they weren't smart enough to get in, But the problem is, it's a matter of, if you don't have the grades as an athlete, that's understandable, because after all, you're going to be generating so much money for the school. And let's face it, these white kids in water polo or these white kids who are on the girls' basketball team, that ain't what generates money to keep the school going. It's those black kids with the USC Trojan football and the basketball programs. They're the ones who keep the school going, not the white kids. It's part of the reason why you get these white parents, as far as they're concerned. Well, I'll donate a building to the school. You know, I can't generate as much as these black kids do, but I'll give you something, damn it. And that's the game that they're playing. So that's the point that I want to get across to you. What you saw them doing with the whole Me Too fraud, the whole Times Up Front group, which, by the way, is still completely and thoroughly disinterested in Kevin Spacey or Harvey Weinstein or Les Moonves. Les Moonves admitted to his crimes. Les Moonves admitted what he did. And yet the white media, you don't see the naughty boys and girls over at Time's Up making a crusade out of Les Moonves. And you don't see anyone trying to shame Julie Chen Moonves, her naming, that's her self-styled title, not mine. She's the one to say, I'm Julie Chen Moonves. Yeah, that's right. White power's letting them know we're circling the wagons. Oh, come on. Didn't you? If you stop by my Twitter feed, and even if you didn't, they've been making quite a big stir about the fact that James Gunn, the formerly disgraced, used to be director of Marvel's Guardians of the Galaxy, well, Disney decided, just kidding, we're giving him his old job back. So now James Gunn has officially been reinstated as the director of Guardians of the Galaxy 3. And that's the message they're trying to get across. For the white guys, not only are they not going to get in trouble no matter what kind of depraved sexual impropriety they're involved in, they're going to get rewarded. Les Moonves has CBS paying for his new corporate digs. They're getting the point across, and they're getting it across aggressively. Time's Up, Me Too. Yeah, you're damn right that these are nothing more than white cover-up groups. These are just some front dummy companies by a bunch of white guys that are being used as their media stalking horses in order to push a phony baloney narrative that, oh, it's these black guys who are the face of all of this sexual predation. And if there's a case where some white people are getting too much attention for their sexual predator behavior, well, all of a sudden someone's going to accuse Chris Brown of something. Some prostitute will accuse Chris Brown of something. Or we're going to have R. Kelly. All of a sudden, the state's attorney, Kim Foxx, and I warned you guys about her, all of a sudden she's going to get all hot and bothered to bring charges against R. Kelly. And hey, if all else fails, we can go to the golden blackjack that never misses, Michael Jackson. Somebody will say something about Michael Jackson, and oh, well, we just have to focus on this. That whole Escaping Neverland fraud, that mockumentary, that piece of libelous, slanderous trash that HBO, and I believe it was either Sky News or BBC One, one or the other, that was responsible for producing. That's to let you know big money was behind this. This was not something that was put out by a couple of fly-by-nighters. And some of the individuals who Michael Jackson knew in life, some of these young white males, they're talking about paying these guys like 6 figures if they would say something. Oh, say something about Michael Jackson. We'll pay you 6 figures if you do. Passing around big money like that, these were not some modest documentarians who had that kind of money. These are big corporations here. This is a corporate smear job. And that's the reason why they went to Sundance with it. And Sundance couldn't wait to put it on. And the whole idea behind that is you're supposed to be trying to find a way to give them some sort of artistic, to arbitrarily bestow artistic legitimacy and credulity on it. Oh, well, we know what you guys probably think about that whole thing, but the truth of the matter is, you got some white judges at a white film festival who say that this is the most riveting thing they've seen, and we're going to have it screened at Cannes so that all the white perverts, the judges there, they will also feel that this gets the attention off of their own sexual impropriety. That this is a stirring piece of information that the public didn't know. Never mind the fact that there's nothing to it. It ain't about that. This is a PR war being waged across the board by the totality of the white media. They're in lockstep. Their dirty laundry is getting aired. All the stuff that they thought was going to be hidden away is not getting hidden away. It's erupting to the surface and they can't stop it. So this is Plan B. Plan B is blame a black man. That's Plan B. Even if we got to make it up, so what? This is war. This is about making sure that all of these people who have been doing dirt don't get punished for what they've done. And as long as you have a court system that's going to decide that anything that white power does is legal because white power did it, as long as you got a media that is compliant and complicit in this racialist aggression, we as black folks have got to be on our square. Either you're serious about this or you're not. And if you're not serious, get the hell away from me because I'm dead serious. I look at this and I'm as disgusted as you are, but I understand that half the problem happens to be the white supremacy is evil, sick, venal, corrupt, perverted. But the other half is, as black folks, we need to be on a war footing against this kind of anti-black demonization and stay on that war footing. At some point, we're going to have to start taking on these white media outlets aggressively on their own turf. And you notice that it's been a constant theme in the last few months or so. I'm letting you know that at some point, we're going to have to stop it with the defensive stuff. The defense is good. Power is used as a shield long before it's used as a sword. But you better be sharpening up your blades, is what I'm saying. At some point in the not too distant future, we're going to have to go on offense against the bad guys. It ain't going to be an offense geared toward, well, maybe we can say a couple of things. Oh, to hell with that. We're going to be invading their space, taking their ground, pushing them out of their territory. This is going to be a black media versus white media war of attrition. It is going to be a media war of attrition. One of us will be completely vanquished and the other one will be the only one left. That's the kind of war that I want. I want a war that eliminates these outposts and these strongholds of lies and anti-black racism. I don't intend to leave any of these scumbags standing. You think I like the idea that a Harvey Levin is out there spreading his racism and bigotry far and wide? You think I like it that a Stormfront East is able to put it together to push this anti-black aggression? You think I like it that these guys are able to work hand in hand with each other and they're not being challenged? Not being challenged in a way that breaks their backs. I'm not looking to merely stare them in the face or give them a bloody nose. I want to break the bastards' backs. I want a situation where when they go down, they stay down because the new voices of black media have crushed them. Now, it's one thing to make them irrelevant. It's another thing to make it where the bastards are out of business or they're pretty much relegated to complete obscurity where you go, the Los Angeles who? You're going to be going Yahoo, and the who is going to be WHO. That's what the goal should be. Our goal is supposed to be warfare. And in warfare, you're not trying to figure out how many prisoners you can take. In warfare, it's a matter of how much ground can I take. What about prisoners? What about them? Devil take the hindmost. The white media is attempting to do this as a means to keep up a steady drumbeat against us. And that steady drumbeat is supposed to translate into legislation targeted toward us because that's the way it's going to be used. You got all sorts of laws on the books regarding sexual predation, but you don't see anybody having any legislation that's supposed to be stopping the next Brock Turner or stopping the next Kevin Spacey. See, these white guys do stuff and that doesn't spur any new legislation. Oh, with Michael Jackson, though, we didn't get Michael Jackson, so we need the California state legislature to write some new laws. Oh, we didn't get Bill Cosby, so we need for Pennsylvania and Maryland and New York and California to write some new laws. We didn't get O.J. Simpson, so we need for California and Florida to write some new laws. We need some new laws that'll let us go after this nigger. Same thing that they were doing with Jack Johnson back in the day. The Mann Act's written specifically to go after one black man. And that's who the Mann Act was meant for, the black man. And you see that they're still operating out of the same playbook. So that's the reason why we're not seeing mugshots. White supremacy is on code. White supremacy understands exactly what the game is here. And the game is, yeah, we're going to pretend as if it's about white folks for a while because we can't stop it. That is going to break. But don't worry. As soon as we figured that we've had too many headlines out there, oh, here goes Lynn Swan. Well, you know, he's at USC. He's not blameless. Los Angeles Times. Well, you know, these administrators, they're claiming that they're not to blame. But are they truly not to blame? I mean, shouldn't there be some blame that they get as well? Because after all, these guys aren't blameless, you know. Yeah, they're not looking and asking what individuals hired that Donna Heinlein woman, who hired these white administrators. Nobody's asking that. And nobody's asking, why is it that we're not going after their money? Nobody's asking how much of their money they're going to have to give up. When they went after Bill Cosby, the first thing they said was, we got to get his money. That nigger's money, we got to get it. When they went after Michael Jackson, got to get that nigger's money. He shouldn't have that money. So you got white folks here who are scamming and stealing over $1 million. One white woman stole over $1 million in bribes. And nobody's asking, well, how are we going to get that money out of her? Nobody's telling her, drop it off. Nobody's doing that at all. Oh, but they are looking at Lynn Swann, though, and they're going to be holding him up. And, of course, on cue, what's going to happen is as soon as the black man starts coming under attack, everyone's going to look and go, that's right. Too many white people. It really is these niggers, and a lot of these black basketball players, they shouldn't be there either, Yeah, it's a narrative the white media is pushing that they know that a significant portion of the population, principally white, but not completely, are going to like because it gives them a chance to say, well, these black folks, they're actually the cause of the problem when you think about it. Oh, Lynn Swann didn't get any money? Lynn Swann had nothing to do with this? Well, he needs to go anyway, because Yahoo didn't have to wait for this admissions scandal to break for them to be demanding that Lynn Swann be fired. They were demanding it 4 months ago. Not because of any impropriety, not because he had broken any laws, not because he had been accused of anything, but simply because as far as they were concerned, the Trojans football team's batting average was too low. Their win-to-loss ratio was just too much in the wrong direction. You had a 5-win, 7-loss season. Not only does the coach have to go, the guy who's over the athletic department, the guys over the athletic program, he's got to go too. That's the game that the white media is playing. It goes across a whole number of lines, just the complete and thorough consistency of the anti-black racism. We need to get the black coaches out of the NFL and the black coaches out of these college programs. Well, these black guys over here, there's accusations against Michael Jackson to this day, Well, Lynn Swann may not have done anything, but this guy, he's not blameless in all this. Even if he didn't do anything wrong, he's still to blame. The Los Angeles Times was teeing that up for someone else to carry the ball, if I may use a sports analogy. They were teeing that up, and Stormfront East was there to catch it. And that's what we're up against. Los Angeles Times says that USC cannot be called blameless. Yeah, but the problem happens to be they're not following the money. Ain't that the way it's supposed to go? Aren't you supposed to follow the money? Are we going to be seeing the white media presenting to us the fraud of these white people who are suing Harvard and Yale and saying that these race-based admissions are wrong? Well, nobody's taking them to task. Nobody's saying, hey, we need to talk to them and ask them about this. Are you guys going to be suing USC and these other schools on these grounds because all these white people? Nobody's running up in the faces of these people with that garbage. All of these white folks who are on a nonstop jihad because the 5 or 6 black kids at this or that school who got in because their grades were better than your white kids' mediocre grades. Nobody's looking at them and saying, hey, you guys need to answer for some of this. You need to be responsible for some of this. Nobody's putting them on the hot seat, and they're not going to. This is not about an admissions scandal. This is about white folks, as usual, being caught with their hand in the cookie jar and the white media running to the rescue. Oh, these white folks have got all this bad PR being exposed for their illegality and crimes. Well, the feds are going to make a show out of announcing the charges, but what they won't be making a show out of is quietly dropping the charges, burying the charges, just like they did with Harvey Weinstein. As above, so below. By the way, we're still waiting to see when Harvey Weinstein's going to go to trial. Still waiting to see. And we're going to continue to wait because the idea is this man's not supposed to go to trial. They're just basically taking it real slow. They're drawing a slow curtain on the second would-be prosecution of Harvey Weinstein. They can't just come out and do it all at once, so they're dropping the case bit by bit. And as I've already shown you with that whole fraud around Jason Van Dyke and not one but 2 judges who were making it clear that they were on the side of the racist cops. You got these judges. Don't think that that judge on the Weinstein prosecution, if there's, to the extent that there is one, don't think that that judge is sitting there thinking, yeah, how can we get this guy in prison? Or thinking, well, let him have his day in court. What they're all thinking is we got to make sure that this guy never goes to trial. We got to make sure that this prosecution dies before the voir dire process. So you got the DA who wants the case to go away. You got the defense attorney who clearly wants the case to go away, and a judge who no doubt wants it to go away too. That's what we're up against here. We have already seen just what the impact is whenever white criminality is exposed, even without us having the power to punish them. But at some point, what we're going to need is the power to make sure that we take the authoritative power of the state out of the hands of the bad guys, and the ability to punish white criminality is going to be in our hands. Maybe not in toto, but certainly in part. And that's something that white supremacy is deathly afraid of, for black people to be exercising any sort of power over white people. And that's the reason why you hear me saying so much that the new voices of black media, whatever political aspirations that we have, whatever political influence we may hope to garner for ourselves, it will never, ever be what it's supposed to be. We will not know that we have arrived until we have proven and demonstrated on a number of occasions, but at least once or twice, hopefully during this election cycle, that we can crush a white political candidate. When black folks have gotten to the point that we're able to take a white candidate and say, you will never be president, and that we are able to crush their campaign arbitrarily, which means we've taken the control of somebody's political viability out of their hands, out of the hands of the white Democrat machine, and we've taken it into our own hands. When we get to that point where we're the ones who decide, where at maybe not all of them, but a few of them, we've got to the point where, hey, we get to have a say in this. That's when we'll know that we've arrived. And you can tell the bad guys are desperately afraid of that day coming. They're doing everything that they can to head it off, or at least to forestall it. This is not about Lynn Swann. Pull your head out of your behind for some folks who clearly are addicted to trying to tell me what little they know. They see something and only think, like a Pavlovian dog, they have the knee-jerk reaction of, this guy, he said some conservative stuff, he said some right-wing stuff. Yes, this is not about whether or not this guy's an idiot, and it's not a matter of let's go rushing to the rescue. This is about black folks understanding it ain't gonna stop with Lynn Swann. This is part of a nonstop barrage, a nonstop offensive against black folks in general. Oh, a lot of you thought that things were going to come to an end with Bill Cosby. A lot of those Me Too Times Out harpies who are out there talking about Bill Cosby, you thought they were going away, and now here comes R. Kelly, and they're going on second verse, same as the first. And then they're going to be trying to go after Chris Brown and say, well, Chris Brown, he allegedly hit Rihanna. And they'll be saying, all these black men, they out here just killing us. Well, okay, in that case, then why don't you go ahead and tell me about Daniel Holtzclaw, what's being done to keep him in prison? We still don't know where that bastard is to this day. How many black women do you rape? Dozens of them. And none of them saying anything about it? Yeah, white supremacy understands the necessity of having their own homegrown black flunkies filtered among us, in order to try to disrupt whatever type of black empowerment discourse we put forward. Whenever it's time to call white supremacy out for the tactics that it uses, we understand that there's a few folks who are going to stick their heads up, and what's happening is we're quarantining them. The ones who make it a habit that they're going to defend and protect white supremacy, and that they're going to run interference for the anti-black tactics that white supremacy uses, we see you. We see you. And the same way that your white benefactors are not going to be able to get away with this forever, that we are building our power slowly but surely, the same way that we have already shown that if we cannot crush your campaign, at the very least, we'll do our level best to cripple it. The day of the white media is coming too. Their names are on the list of individuals who are not going to be left unpunished for their centuries of attacks on us. It's not going to be a matter of, well, the white media just does the bidding of their corporate masters. To hell with that. They are the propaganda arm of white supremacy. Their attacks on us, they are the official Nazi ministry of propaganda. They are the American Nazi propaganda ministry. And that doesn't just go for Stormfront East. That doesn't just go for the Los Angeles Slimes. This goes for freaking all of them. If you ain't one of the new voices of black media, that means you're one of the bad guys. So I'm just going to go ahead and close this out so that you understand all of this has been orchestrated. The secrecy to make sure that those white mugshots remain hidden. Meanwhile, if you're black, on the other hand, they're going to be plastering your mugshots face just wall to wall. And keep in mind, it's at the federal level. It is a federal lawsuit where you had the Sixth Circuit court say that you can't be putting people's mugshots out there. Well, in that case, then shouldn't that be for everyone? Well, this is just the federal level, you see. Because any other time they'd be talking about mugshots at all levels, state, county, local, all of that. Yeah, but this is different. This is the long game that white supremacy is playing. They understand exactly what the nature of these rulings are and who it's meant to protect. So don't be stuck on stupid, folks. You need to understand that the bad guys have no illusions about Lynn Swann. They don't give a damn about Lynn Swann. His name could be Lynn Swann, Mr. Swanson, Mr. Raven, or any other damn name that you want. He's black. That's the reason why this is happening. Make no mistake, we got to be ready to push back and push back hard. The white media is going to be trying to find any Negro within a 10-mile radius that they can point to. Before it's all over, watch as they try to say that there's some black athlete, because it can't just be Lynn Swann. They need a few black men that they can put out there. Well, there's some black athlete who may not, there's accusations that athlete so-and-so may not have gotten in on the properly either. Oh, he was a rising star at such and such athletic program, but now it's been revealed that his admission to the college may have been improper. And it ain't going to be about bribes, because black folks ain't got money for bribes. Instead, what it's going to be is, well, this is about impropriety in college admissions. That's what it's about. It's about impropriety, you see. It's not about bribery. It's about impropriety. Mark my words. That's the direction this is going in. Okay, you got some white celebrities who have been pointed out. Well, we need some black men who we can point to. We need preferably high-profile black men. It doesn't need to be that they cheated their way into school, because we know that they didn't. We just need a way to say, them too, them too. It was these black guys over here too. Because when it comes time for punishment, Donna Heinel's going to be allowed to take some sweetheart plea deal, just like Jeff Epstein, and just like Harvey Weinstein. And just like Brock Turner, she's going to be allowed to take a sweetheart plea deal. No prison time. And the money, well, we ain't really worried about the money. But Lynn Swann, nah, they ain't going to be looking to give him any sweetheart deal anything. It's going to be a matter of he needs to be fired. He needs to be vilified. He needs to be head up. He's the disgraced coach. During the USC admissions scandal, he was the athletics director when all of this cheating was going on. And they will not mention that he was not a recipient of any bribes. He didn't know anything. Donna Heinel's name is going to fall out of the discussion, just like Stormfront East did. And instead it's going to be Lynn Swann. What did he know and when did he know it? I need my people to understand the nature of the threat that we're under. I need my people to understand the propaganda tactics that the white media uses. The same way that they look at any black man who they can drag in and turn into the face of their criminality, we need to call these tactics out and not go letting people try to confuse us and say, well, if this guy said something we don't like, or if this guy says something stupid, that should help us to completely ignore the fact that white supremacy is using this as a proxy war. It's about the proxy war, stupid. It ain't about Lynn Swann. The bad guys are attempting to turn us into the face of white criminality. They're pushing an anti-black lie. And we have got to make it a full court press to push back.